which shows to enter and which relationships to cultivate as rational calculations dependent only on their individual preferences, we must instead look to their position as particular types of artists within the social network. They fill a specific role in relation to others in the network, and their behaviors are defined by that context. For example, artists are not only defined by their general position, such as artist, but also by categories within, delineated by styles, age, length of time in the network, seniority, professional status, among others. But this structural analysis should not be taken to imply a two-dimensional network. There are multiple ties between actors, which create more complex identities for members. These ties are created through information flows, such as which galleries are having juried shows that an artist might be interested in, where there are openings for studio space, where other artists are working and showing, etc. When describing the art community in Fredericksburg today, these information flows were repeatedly stressed by artists as the key feature and use of the networks, as well as what distinguished the Fredericksburg network from other areas. This communication on how to create a reputation and how to succeed economically is often cast as advice when it's explicitly sought or given, but much of the interaction that I saw between artists was exchanging this type of information informally. Most attribute this free exchange to the lesser degree of competition as an artist in Fredericksburg in comparison to larger metropolitan areas, where it's hard to survive as an artist, so competition is higher and thus people don't share information for fear that a newcomer will usurp their place, as one younger female artist put it. The small-town attitude of Fredericksburg in general is listed as a contributing factor to this mentality, but this general exchange of information among artists is the main action associated with social networks among artists in particular. The concept of structural equivalence, as elaborated by Berg, merits further examination to understand the seat of artists' social identities. This theory delineates individuals within a social network by the roles they play. Individuals are considered to be structurally equivalent if they occupy the same position within the network. For example, two gallery owners are structurally equivalent as are two artists. Subcategories of artists, as described above, further complicate matters. Artists can create their identities in a network in relation to not only those who fill different structural positions, but also those who fill the same position. Individuals simultaneously attempt to differentiate themselves from the structurally equivalent actors while possessing a sort of mechanical solidarity. There are parallel discourses, each competing discourses and identities, group and individual, in relation to structurally equivalent counterparts, allows artists to create their social identity as members of the community while retaining their autonomy and artistic independence. Identity, however, is not merely a product of being a member of the community. Although all artists can be considered structurally equivalent when compared to gallery owners or customers, within the broad label artist exist several subgroups that are also structurally equivalent, following Evan Pritchard's principle of segmentary opposition. Applying this to the art community when looking at the macro level, the art community in Fredericksburg defines itself as an art network, as opposed to the general population lacking interest in the arts. A docent at Sophia House, not an artist, explained his involvement by saying he got aesthetic pleasure from being around the art, but then among his social circle outside the art network, this was unusual. Looking more narrowly, Fredericksburg is opposed to other art communities, especially ones in big cities such as New York, based on degree of competition or support. This is often the level that artists fall upon when describing the social network, as the one that sees the sharpest contrast. Carmen used her former home of New York City with its cutthroat competition and large size to describe Fredericksburg's supportive community. When looking for a place to move, she recalled, she wanted a community that she could be a bigger part of and in which she could raise children. Within the networks, general positions delineate groups, such as artists, gallery owners, and customers. Subgroups also exist, which define the daily interactions of an individual within the network. However, Fredericksburg artists don't primarily conceptualize themselves as part of these subgroups, which are often ill-defined. These are talked about more as personal relationships than as a part of the social network. The most common reference to the Fredericksburg art community is in contrast with other art networks. Thus, although identity is divided into ever smaller groups, the smallest groups are not the seat of identity. Instead, identity is rooted in simply being a part of the network, allowing actors to define themselves primarily as artists, as opposed to the type of artist, where they're delineated by age, style, or medium. At the same time, the relationships between structurally equivalent actors defined by these subgroups are of interest. One well-established artist described how he naturally feels closer to those in similar situations, by which he was referring to career status, placing himself in what was implied to be the most serious professional full-time artists. Another newer artist each other and thus feel the most sympathy for each other. But many of the interactions that create the social network are with those in different structural positions, such as gallery owners and customers. This tension of different forms of relationships creates multiple meanings of community. Not only is the